Let me start by introducing you the use case that we'll be discussing today, or rather the case study for SAP S/4HANA transformation. The company name has been masked so that the confidentiality is kept. And let me introduce now a bit about the company. The company was a mid-size auto component manufacturer organization, a prime vendor to auto companies with multi-location manufacturing. It was a cost-effective, rapid, and successful implementation of SAP Cloud migration from old SAP ECC environment. An organization which was highly process-driven but operating on dated SAP version based on heavy customization of standard SAP ECC system. Large auto manufacturing customers were demanding better visibility of supply capacity and delivery dates. Some were even looking for integration with their own systems. Huge pricing pressure and much needed process improvements for better lead times weren't happening due to old SAP process mapping and data inflexibility, coupled with customized program and costly system maintenance for both hardware and software. So, how did we do it? So, we improved the business process efficiency and performance, along with reduced process cycle times, resulting into reduced inventory, manufacturing lead times, and reduced per unit cost. Offered better delivery dates visibility to customers at times by giving access to customers for viewing the order status. Redefining processes of production planning and inventory management by studying the patterns and changing the strategies like make to order versus make to stock. Procurement production decisions. Introduce digital automation in repetitive and unproductive workflows and processes. Made the organization ready for future by enabling better integration between R&D and CRM. So, Praveen, thank you for joining us today. Now, let me start with my first question to you. What approach you took while migrating old business processes to SAP Cloud business processes?
Yeah. Hi Vidya and hello everybody. I'm Praveen. As Vidya suggested, we have done very successful SAP implementation in SAP Cloud, migrating from SAP ECC. And for today's webinar, we thought that we would be sharing our experiences based on very complicated implementation in terms of processes, management, locations, and of course the cost considerations. So the approach which we wanted to take for migrating from old SAP process to new SAP cloud process, first we believe that this migration needs to be adopted as a best opportunity to improve the business processes itself. What we did
Yes,
first is educate customer that migration is not just a technological change. It is an
true.
opportunity to get rid of some of the outdated or unproductive processes. And that's what we did with this customer to improve the hygiene of the business processes. Unlike other SAP users, particularly this company, they were using SAP for some time, for at least 6 to 7 years minimum, and they had a structured data with them. I mean, they had material masters and routings, and a lot of data was actually available. So,
Correct.
unlike non-SAP users, yeah, the data
Mhm.
availability and the readiness of data, training for data, etc., was surely avoided because most of the data was in
True.
structured form. So that was the good part of it. What we have reduced is the our unproductive time in data normalizing and things like that, which we generally do. So that was the advantage. However, the processes had lot of documentation. I mean, it was involved lot of approvals, it was involved lot of aligning, and the workflows were complicated. They were not adhering to the times they wanted to achieve. For example, say from creation of purchase order to
Mhm.
actual GR, I mean,
Okay.
barring the time of actual supplying unit, the time required
True.
inside the organization for the workflows
Uh-huh.
approval was sluggish, and it was not sluggish only due to
Oh,
the bureaucracy in the process. The volume
okay.
of the data, the volume of
Uh-huh.
approvals, the validation it required, all were
Mhm.
pretty manual, though SAP was implemented. So the opportunity for us was that in SAP Cloud, what can we digitize further? So
True.
that was the approach, that we could avoid whatever the sluggish processes are there. A lot of reports were asked for in the earlier system. So where the reports
Uh-huh.
were really, if they were used for what decision making. So we kind of became very critical about which
Mhm.
processes are really required and what needs to be abandoned. So how we did it? I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of processes which are involved. So, I mean, many of organizations also go for SAP Signavio, little costly affair though. But we, as Perceive, we have deployed our own process mining tool called Future. It is very
Okay.
famous and we have used it many a times. What it did was basically, slice and dice the efficiency of all the processes. Where there are inordinate delays, what are the
Mhm.
bottlenecks? What bottlenecks are stopping further processes to be removed? So we first, our approach was to hygienize all the business processes before we even touch any logging in. So I think that approach was immensely important to us. Uh, that is the
Okay.
reason we wanted to shift from ECC to cloud. So I think that was the first approach, or I would say first step, which we took
True.
while we migrated from this as a transformation.
True. Streamlining of the business process, definitely, that's the key. The process is your backbone, so it has to be streamlined and
Absolutely,
perfect. Now let me
absolutely.
go to one more question, Praveen. Get ready for the
Yeah,
next one. So,
yeah.
so the next question that I have is, as you rightly mentioned, there were huge reports and functionalities which were there, the custom ones, though, which were there. So, how did you address these challenges of migrating the old, specially developed functionalities or reports to the new system, the new cloud system? As the users are very much used to their own processes, their own T codes, their own functionalities and reports. So, how did you manage that?
Vidya, instead of saying manage that, we actually enjoyed that part.
Oh, is it?
Why I'm saying this is, yeah, I mean, generally it's looked as a challenge, but that's the most interesting part for we as a domain process experts or business process owners, I would say. Uh, it is a chance for us to review what has happened in the past. Why have they developed, customer has developed so many different Z programs? What was that was
Mhm.
not happening in earlier SAP system, but they were very special to customer. So they have
Correct.
customized certain functionalities. There are so many reports, maybe periodic report, daily report, monthly production reports, inventory cycle reports, inventory value reports, inventory carrying cost reports, and I would say hundreds of financial reports. So what was that need to create so
Mhm.
many reports? So we little became critical about
Okay.
how we want to do it. And this is not just, I would say, a knee jerk reaction, because, as you know, we are
Mhm.
having our own methodology called
Right.
customized process audits, right? So depending on the type of vertical, if it auto or if it is like plastic manufacturing, toys manufacturing,
True.
chemicals, so depending on a generic verticalization, we have an idea about what type of reports or what type of benchmarks and KPIs are required to run a business. So we kind of compared and
Okay.
analyzed those in three categories, all the processes. One was
Mhm.
that are these processes are really essential to customize even from ECC to cloud if we want to
Mhm.
move, and if there are certain processes which still needs customization
Correct.
despite organization being mature to use SAP for some time, there
True.
is kind of an understanding that this process was
Right.
not required to customize. It could have done in a
Mm.
standard way. or this could have been done in a
Right.
better way than what is being customized. So the three
Mm.
categories out of our audit. So that audit
Mm-hmm.
created three different lists. One was
Okay.
essential customization to be retained. Okay, I mean we do
Okay.
give due respect to what really customer needs. I mean in this particular
Sure.
customer part, batch management, serial numbers, and connecting that with the production orders, and
Mm-hmm.
then aligning that with the sales orders because the servicing needs to be done later on, right? So they
Sure.
had to have the part number traceability across with their own material numbering system, which could not have
True.
handled by any software for that matter, forget SAP. So that
Correct.
customization was
Okay.
definitely had to be replicated in a little better way. So such
Okay.
customization was essential customization. Second was redundant customization to be eliminated completely. We
Okay.
eliminated 32% of the, I would say, Z programs or customization
Oh,
while we shifted.
wow.
That
Okay.
made life much easier in the sense that
True.
when this SAP was implemented, there were core
Mm-hmm.
users, they were not used to ERP systems earlier. So they
Correct.
designed their own systems in SAP. But after many
True.
years, new people joined the organization. They knew better
All right.
processes, but they had to follow our old processes because they were designed that way. So this was an
Mm.
opportunity to make the reports and processes redundant. So that was the second category. Third category
Okay.
was what is that was customized earlier and can be done in a better way in SAP Cloud itself, because world has moved.
Right.
Some processes,
Correct.
some of the processes earlier with this customer were depending on
Uh-huh.
how their suppliers behave. Okay,
Okay.
they're pretty crude way of subcontracting.
Oh,
In
okay.
last 8 years, they have changed their suppliers. Their supplier changed. Their suppliers
Okay.
implemented their own ERP, and
Uh-huh.
now such kind
Mm-hmm.
of a process could have been integrated rather than being manual. So these
True.
processes we could absorb in SAP Cloud because that was
Mm.
not possible in HANA because it was not cloud based. So mind you, that was the
Yeah.
difference which made in this customer that cloud based solution enabled them to
Mm-hmm.
really connect their suppliers well. So that was an advantage which I would say. So in short,
True.
what I'm trying to say
Mm-hmm.
here is in this particular aspect, it is
Uh-huh.
the understanding of the important and critical domain processes is very
Okay.
important. Okay, uh,
Sure.
we need to walk the talk. We as domain experts first needs to extract that value when we are moving
Mm-hmm.
from is to a cloud, looking
Uh-huh.
at what SAP can offer versus what
Uh-huh.
that organization can take. So
Okay.
that analysis came through the audit which we conduct for before any migration for that matter.
Okay. Thank you, Praveen, for this answer. Now, let me go back to one more question for you. This is more
Sure.
from the aspect of business value, I would say. So,
Yeah.
so, what are the benefits of migration after the implementation? So, my question to you here is, how did customer gauge the benefits of migration? How could he perceive the value which will be added by migration than a pure technological change from an on-premise to a cloud platform?
Right. Again, uh, before any customer invests, post implementation, particularly those customers who have already implemented SAP, they're fairly
Okay.
aware that
Yeah.
what is that area expecting from migration. Okay, why are they
True.
moving? What is the advantage? I mean, you are supposed to spend some money there, and
Yeah.
are you just changing the system? Are you just having the technological shift? So obviously that is not the case. Okay, well, it
True.
all depends on what direction your organization wants to take in the future. This is about the future, I would say. Okay, with
Correct.
all the new technological innovations and process adoptions, every organization fiercely wants to compete and to keep themselves relevant in the process. Okay,
Right.
in this particular
Absolutely.
case, what happened was because of cloud platform, The
Mm-hmm.
efforts which are required to manage the networking and
Okay.
hardware was taken off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The focus
Perfect.
was
Yes.
only on the KPIs which were required to be improved in the system. So
Mm.
it is not about cloud or SAP or ECC, it is about more about KPIs, what you want to achieve as a business process. So
Okay.
another focus was how to improve productivity across the system, right from R&D to after sales service. Okay, because
Uh-huh.
in patches, a few things were done. The HR was implemented little later on. Quality management
Mm-hmm.
module was fully utilized. Plant maintenance
Okay.
module was only for feeding the data. Was not really
All right.
used or leveraged
Okay.
as a value-added
Mm.
system. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
that was one part of it.
Uh-huh.
Focus was also on futuristic requirement of the business. Okay, how are you going to
True.
make your organization more accessible to your vendors,
Correct.
to your
Correct.
customers, your dealers, your partners? They all are
Okay.
expecting now you to be engaged with them, not
Mm-hmm.
by some websites or something. They want to engage on a real time basis for all your processes. That is one more
Correct.
reason why you moved from ECC to cloud in first place. So this
Yes.
transparency is required. Customer gets transparency. Is my delivery date going to change? Is my
Mm.
supplier
Right.
is their supplier knew that if the production orders have changed, what is that they need to
Mm.
do? Because it is was used because of the cloud integration part. So it was not
Okay.
possible earlier in the ECC system. Okay, so that was one
True.
big change which was done. Another
Sure.
thing was their employees were more connected in the process environment.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
if like sales folks or people were on maintenance, after sales maintenance, moving around. Okay, when they were
Mm-hmm.
connected to the cloud SAP system, their
Mm-hmm.
life really became easy in this case. Okay, so
True.
that
Very good.
became a very fast, I would say, reaction for such processes. Decisions could be made more in faster way. Even
Okay.
small
Right.
decisions like spare part management or big decision
Mm-hmm.
about whether this part should be imported. So such, I would say,
Okay.
decisions could have made fast in the process. So this is where what we actually added value when we did
All
this
right.
migration from ECC to cloud. So I would say that is something which impacted our position in the at the customer end.
Okay. Thank you, Praveen. So now when we are saying a complete end-to-end process, right, from R&D to the customer service, now the question comes about my security and confidentiality. So didn't your customer voice his concern over data security and confidentiality of information while moving from ECC to SAP Cloud platform? So what was it
Yeah.
regarding?
Interestingly, before we won such project, this was discussed quite at length because of some
Okay.
patent issues actually, and of
Okay.
course product design,
Hmm.
bill of material. These were three important aspects of it. So
All right.
feeling insecure, feeling anxious about your proprietary information is very obvious. I
Hmm.
mean, no two things
Correct.
about it. Okay, but the important role what we played there, okay, is because
Hmm.
we know how to handle this using SAP BTP as a platform. Okay, I mean
True.
this platform is by SAP globally is being tested, proved, adhering to certain standards like ISO 27001 or some
Okay.
automotive specific standards, like IATF. So such
Okay.
standards are followed when such architecture is being developed. So,
Okay.
our allocation as service provided is
Hmm.
to actually know how to use these security platforms. Okay,
Sure.
which are the gates? How to secure those gates? SAP
Okay.
BTP platform is a
Hmm.
platform which allows you to connect for the future discussion like AI, for future integration with vendors,
Okay.
for R&D units which has been taken over by that particular company later on. So the
Uh-huh.
integration was
Hmm.
required. So these gateways or these accesses, how they need to be
Hmm.
structured, how the architecture needs to have happened, that is what we are
True.
expert in. So, and by the
Correct.
way, let me tell you, I mean, apart from our expertise, I've
Right.
been working in the domain for last 30 years plus, but I
Sure.
haven't seen a single case of data breach. Okay,
Great.
particularly when it comes to the integration part. So while we shift to the cloud, I'm sure SAP has taken far better efforts to make that legacy continue over there.
Thank you so much, Praveen. I think that assurance of confidentiality and security is really important. And when it is coming from an expert like you, then I think the customer is even more happier and confident about his data security aspect about it. Now, let me come to the last question, but an important one, which I would say beyond the system, but most discussed. That's about change management. Mindsets and comfort levels of existing environment needs to be addressed. Similarly, top management needs to be confident about ROI. What's your experience in general about this aspect?
Now, this is not something which is little like generic in nature. Every organization is like a person to deal with. Okay, I mean, it has its own culture, it has its own habits, it has its own organization structures. So however we templatize or best practicize the business processes, how those
Sure.
organizations actually implement them and
Mm-hmm.
deal with each other on a daily basis
Mm-hmm.
varies no, quite a lot. So in our case, in this particular
Mm-hmm.
case, that was a case where top management itself was not very sure about the ROI part. Okay, so
Okay.
how we handle that is by simulating certain business
Mm-hmm.
processes and showing that if your organization works in this fashion, this is how you
Uh-huh.
are going to reduce the communication gaps, or this is how you are going to create the accountability in your in processes. Not everyone
Okay.
will try to answer every question if something goes wrong.
Mm.
So that kind
True.
of a transparency, I mean, when you superimpose all the business processes and the organization
Right.
structure on top of it, then you can clearly
Correct.
see the gaps of how it can happen. Okay, so during,
Right.
and also what happens is during SAP ECC earlier on-premise implementation, management
Okay.
as organization has experienced some struggle in training requirements, workflow designs,
Right.
quality of data. Okay, and similarly, the change management part, the structure, reporting, workflows, and things like that. Another change management was related to the periodic reports which organizations wanted. Everybody wanted their own reports. So was
Right.
it really necessary? What decision was to be made? So
Hmm.
we actually conduct change management workshops
Okay.
by considering what happens in the process in the organization. Okay, so
Okay.
we actually created a workshop, kind of a process workshop seminars for that
Mm-hmm.
organization. We studied,
Okay.
this is customer sensitive information. So
All right.
how the process executives are actually working, how the process workflows are happening, how the authorization should flow so that your finance reports are good enough for you to understand the KPIs. Are the
Mm-hmm.
KPIs holistic for the entire organization? So such things needs
Okay.
to be relooked when you are moving from ECC to cloud, is because mobility of people had changed.
Uh-huh.
Because cloud,
Okay.
you can access your reports from the airport, etc. So
Right.
I'm sure processes have changed because of the mobility, because of after the COVID work from home kind of a culture. So
Sure.
these are also the impacts which we have to take into consideration when we
Mm.
see the change management. Otherwise, uh, integration will happen, migration will happen, data will be in its place, configuration and
Right.
systems will be in their place, but it will still not be a successful implementation if change management is not handled properly. So I think we are a partner and responsible that this needs to happen perfectly so that you actually grow that confidence in customer also, that the migration is not just technology but migration is changing the
Right.
culture.
True, true. Thank you, Praveen, for sharing your experience.